In this video, let's see how we can create a running total in DAX. So basically the concept of running total means that if you place your cursor on a given date, so let's take example of January 10. What I want to do is simply sum the amount of that day as well as all the dates that are prior to that day. And if you see on the cell that is adjacent to that day, we report a sales amount that is a sum of all the dates that are less than or equal to 110. And if I go to the last date or the last month in the data model, you can see that at the grand total at the December level we see the sales amount that is at the also at the grand total. So it signifies that we are summing all the sales amount that are lesser than December 2009. So let's get started and see how we can create a measure like that. So I'm starting with a blank file so that we can start from the scratch, and the first thing that I need to do is simply create a new measure, and I will name it as running total. So let's zoom in a little bit, and first thing that we need to do is simply identify the date that we currently are on, and for that we can create a variable, and I'm going to name it as visible date, and that will simply hold max dates date. And let's try to return this variable. So I can write return and visible date and bring that into the matrix. So you can see that if I ignore 2005-6, you can see that for January at the month level I get 131 because in January 31st is the max date or the last date, but at each cell I get the exact same date, and by using this date I will be able to compute my running total. So let's move on and write some more code. Now what I'm going to do is simply retrieve all the dates from a data model, and then I'm going to filter out those dates that are less than or equal to my visible date, and I can create a new variable which will be prior dates, and that will be basically a filter function over all dates table. And then in the row context what I'm going to do is simply check if dates date is less than or equal to visible date variable. And what prior date is going to do is it is going to return a date table at each cell, which will increment as we move through the time. So let's try to see how many dates we are returning at each cell. So I can write count rows prior dates. So let's get out of that, and you can see that if for a moment we ignore 2005 and 6, you can see that for each cell the number is actually incrementing. And if I go into 2005, you can see that for January we are reporting 39, for February we are reporting 59, which basically means 31 plus 28 days. And if I go into March, you can see that at each date we are incrementing that number, and by using that logic we will be able to create a running total. So the next thing that we are going to do is simply compute the sales amount, and for that I can create a new variable which will be result, and that will be basically a calculate over the total sales, and you can use any other measure as per your own preference. And what I'm going to do is simply inject that table that I've retrieved in the prior date variable, and then calculate will apply those dates into the filter context, and we will receive our running total. So let's return this variable and let's confirm the measure, and let's go one level up. So you can see that at each month level the number is actually incrementing and it doesn't stops anywhere. And if I go to the end, you can see that at January 2009 we see the sales amount that is exactly as same as we see at the grand total. So that basically signifies that we are summing all the values or all the sales amount for the days that are less than the last date of December 2009. And now let's see how we can actually remove the running total from the year 2010 and 11, because we do not have any sales amount for that given year. And for that what we can do is simply identify the last date in the sales table for which there was a transaction. So what I can do is simply create a new variable, and I'm going to name it as last date with sales, and that will be basically a calculate over max sales order date. Now I need to use calculate because I'm going to remove the dates column from the filter context. So I can use remove filters over the dates table, and if I try to return this variable, we will see a last date in 2009 December, and that is 12/31/2009. So that signifies that on 31st December of 2009 there was a transaction, and after which there was no transaction in our sales table. And now let's go back to our code so that we can make some changes. And what I'm going to do is simply introduce an if statement, and which will basically check that if visible date is less than or equal to last date with sales variable, then I want to return the result variable, otherwise I want to return a blank. And the second condition, or the second branch of if, automatically returns a blank in case if we do not specify anything. So let's confirm this measure, and you can see that we only see the running total for 2007, 8 and 2009, and 2010 and 2011 have been removed from the matrix. And that is how you can create a running total, and I will see you in the next video.